What is up, guys? It's the John Gasm coming at you today with a new episode of Secrets of Cinema. Today we are embarking on a trek that has been long awaited, talking about a series that has been heavily requested, Star Wars. Today we're going to be starting with Episode 4, A New Hope, which, fun fact, is the only Star Wars movie to have been nominated for a Best Picture Academy Award, and the first ever science fiction movie to be nominated for Best Picture Award. Something I thought was absolutely crazy was that if you adjust for inflation, Star Wars Episode 4 is the second highest grossing movie ever made. I actually don't know what the first one is, but it's probably something crappy that James Cameron made, like Titanic or Avatar. Something else money related, this was the first movie to have ever made over $300 million. Nowadays, big blockbusters seem to make that pretty regularly, but back in the 70s, that was a whole lot of money. Something else that I find the most crazy and could probably have the biggest impact out of all these facts I'm talking about, A New Hope was actually supposed to be the only Star Wars movie. In fact, the subtitle, A New Hope, wasn't even added until 1981. Before then, it was just Star Wars. As you guys know, in this series, I love talking about script changes. I think it's pretty awesome to hear the difference between what a story was supposed to be and the story that we were told. And Star Wars is not an exception to this rule. It actually had a completely different script to start off with. According to an interview with George Lucas, Luke was supposed to be a girl, Han Solo was supposed to be a green alien, the Wookiees were called Jawas, and R2-D2 and C-3PO were called A2 and C-3. Now those are just character changes, there's also a huge plot change too. Originally, the Millennium Falcon was not supposed to land on the Death Star, but instead it was supposed to land at a cloud city above the gaseous surface of Alderaan. Now this isn't to say it was supposed to land on Bespin, where Lando Calrissian inhabits, it's just supposed to land on a cloud city. The rescue of Princess Leia and Obi-Wan and Darth Vader's duel was supposed to all take place here and not on the Death Star. I don't know if you guys know this, but before Star Wars and Star Trek, science fiction movies were really not that popular. And in fact, George Lucas was so sure that the movie was going to flop in theaters that instead of attending the premiere, he went on vacation with Steven Spielberg and they came up with the idea for Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Something else that I find absolutely awesome is that originally, R2-D2 was supposed to speak very basic human language, instead of those little beeps that he tends to make. But not only was he supposed to be able to speak English, he actually was supposed to have a really foul mouth. That's actually why C-3PO always tends to be pretty offended at whatever R2 is saying to him. They kept C-3PO's original reactions to R2-D2's foul mouth. So that's kind of cool. Another big change that they decided to make was that originally, the entire original trilogy was all supposed to be one movie. And George Lucas's original script was a 200-page screenplay. Being that he spent so much time working on it, he was really against condensing it down and making it shorter. So instead, he focused on the first third of the script, and after the audience received it really well, he expanded on the next 2/3, and that's where we get Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Something else I never realized is that Darth Vader only has 12 minutes of screen time in A New Hope. That's kind of insane. Like, the most trademarked bad guy, the coolest bad guy in this movie, is only on screen for 12 out of the 121 minutes. The fact that it didn't take him more than 12 minutes to have such a huge impact on the audience just shows how powerful of a character he is. And actually, the two actors who provided the voice and body for Darth Vader, James Earl Jones and David Prowse, have never met to this day. Do you guys remember that scene on the Death Star where they're rescuing Princess Leia from the cell block and Han Solo starts talking to the other troops on the Death Star over the intercom? Well, to make that interaction seem more realistic, Harrison Ford actually didn't memorize any of his lines. So that way it really does look like Han Solo is coming up with everything he's saying on the spot, because Harrison Ford is just trying desperately to remember what he's supposed to say. Something that made me kind of sad inside was that Kenny Baker, the guy who played R2-D2, said that when the cast and crew broke for lunch, usually everyone would forget that he was still in the suit and they would leave him there while they went off to eat. If you've seen the movie, you gotta remember the attack that the rebels performed on the Death Star, and those final suspenseful moments when Darth Vader had Luke's X-Wing right in his targeting sights. But all of a sudden at the last second, the Millennium Falcon comes in, shoots away one of Darth Vader's TIE fighters that are right next to him, and crashes into his and sends his spinning out into space. Originally, the film crew did not want to include the scene that shows Darth Vader's spaceship flying out of control. The reason they didn't want to include it was because they felt that it was a cheap way to kind of set up a sequel for the future. And at the time, sequels were usually thought of as just cheap cash-in movies. However, George Lucas insisted on it, and as a result, it was kept in the movie. Something that you may hear pretty often is that George Lucas convinced Carrie Fisher, the actress who played Princess Leia, that underwear was not worn in space, and therefore she did not wear underwear under her Princess Leia costume. Well, actually, George Lucas is not that big of a perv, and that is not true. However, because of the way the costume fit her, there really was no way for Carrie Fisher to wear underwear while wearing the costume. As a result, they actually had to tape her breasts down. Carrie Fisher later joked, saying, "As we all know, there's no underwear in space," which I believe is where that faked fact about pervy George Lucas comes from. One more thing I never realized is that this is the only Star Wars movie to not include Darth Vader's signature Imperial March. One more thing I never realized is that despite Princess Leia saying that Obi-Wan Kenobi was the rebellion's only hope, her and Obi-Wan never actually meet. The closest they get to interacting is when she sees him dueling Darth Vader as they leave the Death Star. This next fact is actually one of my favorite facts. Dennis Lawson is the actor who played Luke's friend, Wedge. Dennis Lawson is also the uncle of Ian McGregor, the actor who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels. Did you know that the Millennium Falcon was mostly constructed out of junked cars and airplanes? Me neither. But it is. And did you know that the sound that the TIE fighters make is actually a combination of the sounds a baby elephant makes and the sound of a car driving on a rain-slicked highway? Isn't that crazy? They can literally make sound effects for anything out of anything. You really gotta admire the sound guy's work. I've got 3 more tidbits of trivia for you guys, and these are my 3 favorites, so strap yourself in. Brace yourself, because this fact is crazy. The entire original reason that Darth Vader was wearing a suit in the beginning of the movie was because the production designer said that the character needed a way to get from his spaceship to Princess Leia's spaceship while breathing. This next fact, just as crazy. In the final scene where Luke Skywalker and Han Solo get their medallions and for some reason Chewbacca doesn't, there's a huge crowd of the rebellion cheering them on. Well, actually, the majority of that crowd, cardboard cutouts. Yeah. And the last fact that I've got for you guys, which is probably the most true thing that has ever been said, Han shot first. And that, my friends, is all the trivia I've got for you guys for Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Expect another video featuring Star Wars Episode 5 trivia to be coming soon. In the meantime, while you're waiting for that, you guys should make sure that you rate, comment, and subscribe. Those are the 3 best ways for me to get feedback on these videos. Am I making them too long? Do you guys want more facts? Am I covering the right types of movies? Also, if you want to be a super fan, feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram or like my Facebook fan page. Those are the best ways to stay updated on what I'm doing when I'm not uploading a video. And when you're done with all that, I've got 3 more things to ask of you. Stay beautiful, stay awesome, and stay fresh.